All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the new normal, where we are talking current events, finances, philosophy, preparedness, and more. My name is Sal, and with me, as always, we have Quinton. Say hi to everybody, Quinton.
What's up, guys?
We got a great show for you guys tonight. Quinton, we have a good friend of mine, Myron, who is joining us for an interview tonight. Pretty excited to have him on. We're going to talk about some interesting things that he's got going on with his family. Just a little bit of background on him. Myron is an entrepreneur and the VP of Sales and Marketing with Daybreak Poly Furniture and Facio Concepts. Probably said that wrong, but you know what? Someone will correct us eventually. He's also a business coach with Freedom Group LLC, where he coaches business owners on living by design. On top of all of that, on top of all of those credentials, Myron is a husband and a family man with 5 children, living full-time in an RV and traveling the world. They recently returned from an adventure in Bali, of all places. I don't think you can take an RV to Bali, so I'd love to hear what that adventure was like. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the new normal. We want to welcome to the show Mr. Myron Bauman. Myron, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Matt, we want to thank you so much for coming onto the show today. It's a pleasure to have entrepreneurs and business leaders to come talk to the audience and share with us the experiences that they're going through in this COVID situation, in this post-pandemic, or even just in the midst of this pandemic, and how it's affecting families, how it's affecting business, how it's affecting pretty much our way of life. And when we talk about the new normal, in the concept that most people take from that is a relatively negative concept, right? So when we talk about the new normal, you think of things like the shoe bomber. Now we have to take our shoes off at the airport, right? 9/11 as a whole changed the way we do business at airports and changed American way of life. And that just became the quote unquote new normal. So what we wanted to do with the show is take that concept of the new normal and sort of flip it on its head and talk about how this new normal can be looked at from the perspective of finances, philosophy, and current events, and how we can relate that in a positive sense. What people are doing to change their mindset so that they can get ready or be more prepared should this get even worse, or should it get better, and we take advantage of that situation and how we can come out of it. So I'm eager to hear about your family. Tell me a little bit more about your 5 kids, is it, and living in an RV. When did you guys decide to do that?
Yeah, so we are a family of 5 kids. Our oldest is 11, our youngest is 7. And we just crossed our 5-year mark of living in the RV here in April. So we've been doing this for 5 years. Our oldest was 6, and our youngest, I think, was 2.5 or 3 when we started this journey. So yeah, 2,300 square foot home down to 375 square foot, 7 people. It's been a journey.
What was their reaction initially, the kids? I assume your wife was pretty much on board, but like, what was it like for the kids?
Yeah, I mean, it's an adventure. I mean, like any adventure or lifestyle choice, there's ups and downs, right? Because you're always exploring, or you're having the fun side, but then there's the normal side. And they've grown up in it. So, I mean, 2.5 years old, and then 3 of them were 4 or 5, and, you know, because they're 3 of them are the same age. So they were young. And so it's just kind of normal life to them. They almost don't know what it's like to live in a house. So that helps.
What are some of the interesting challenges that you've had to face with having that many kids in an RV in such a confined space?
I think most of it is, I mean, we came from a 2,300 square foot home, so we had to downsize a lot of our stuff. Basically, if we don't use it in 4 weeks, it goes. And if we don't even use it in a week, we're like, it's a heavy contemplation. So that's a challenge when you have kids that like to collect. So that definitely is challenging. So we like to collect things as young kids, and so that's a challenge. Rainy days are the next challenge.
Oh yeah.
We want outdoors to be our playground and just to explore and do that. But even if you're in a house, outdoors is a bit challenging in the rain. So rainy days are definitely probably the second worst thing about living in an RV.
Right. And living in an RV obviously has its challenges and its benefits. With downsizing, you kind of get into that minimalist lifestyle. Is that what led you to take this route? Was it to downsize and either minimalism or essentialism is the other buzzword? What got you into wanting to have this as a full-time lifestyle for you guys?
Yeah, I think that morphed. It really started with 5 kids that were very young, trying to sell a property, and so I was like, that was my persuasion, I guess, to my wife to even get on board with it. Was, why don't we go live in an RV for a while we sell the house and buy another house? And um, that didn't necessarily just go just like that, but that's how it started, and then it continued to morph into a lifestyle. Then we got on a debt-free journey, and yeah, lots of debt reduction and lots of other crazy things that then came out of it. So
Were you doing some of these financial freedom and financial debt payoff? Was this already a part of that mentality, or did it just kind of naturally dovetailed into that lifestyle?
it didn't. We actually were spenders then. We
Mm.
bought a brand new RV, and all those things. So at that point, we had topped out to almost 800 and some thousand in debt. So no,
Wow.
we didn't start this to get out of debt necessarily at all. We would have bought a used older rig or used the RV we had. So it definitely wasn't started because of like, hey, let's cut our costs of debt, maybe cost of living a little bit, but not debt for sure.
And are you taking it when you first started? Was it from a full-time RV? So I have a friend, mutual friend of ours, Scott, who also is full-time RV, and they travel. So 9 months out of the year, they're pretty much all over the place. Is that the goal that you guys had, or are you more stationary? Is it a little bit of mix of both?
So we're definitely more of a mix, we have about 4 companies at the time. And we were actually into real estate investing at that time as well. And so I would say we were more of a half and half. So we might have went for 3, 4 every winter for the most part. We went south or somewhere like that. But then in the summer, during our busier seasons, we definitely were more around the base here in Pennsylvania.
And being in Pennsylvania, you come from, correct me if I'm wrong, was it a Mennonite
Yeah, we were
background?
part of, yeah, Mennonite background. Yep.
Okay. What was that like growing up?
Um, I mean, some of the listeners might be familiar with, the Amish community. We were a driving version of that. So no
Okay.
internet, no TV, no radio. Um, and I started a marketing company when I was 16 years old. So that created some major challenges.
Oh, I bet. And were there any, I guess, hesitations in going that route when you had that kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily a strict background, but was it a challenge in even approaching that with family and friends back then?
Not really until it started to become the digital part.
Mm.
It started as print, and so that wasn't a big deal. So I would say it was probably about I was 20. So the first 4 years, no big deal. So that kind of got the foot in the door on it. But then it started to go scratching into the web space, and that's when, because we weren't allowed internet and all that, there was kind of a conflict of how to do websites and develop stuff for people without the internet. So.
Right. And going back to the family size, you mentioned that you have 3 kids that are around the same age or that are the same age. Was it a goal for you guys to start a large family kind of right away, or was that just something that you led into having more kids and I believe you adopt your
Yeah.
children?
Yeah, all of ours are adopted. So basically, what happened, we were married 6 years, and had some disappointing miscarriages. And when we started doing foster care, is where it all started. So 4 of our kids are biological siblings. So we have 11-year-old, 10-year-old twins, and the 7-year-old are full biologically. Yeah, 4 biological siblings. And then we have another girl 3 months to the day in age to the twins. So we call them our triplets. And
That's
so
funny.
yeah, it's 11, 3 10-year-olds, and 7 at this point in junction. But we had 4 in diapers at one time when it all started. So
Wow. Have you seen the Marky Mark movie that is based on a true story with foster children?
I don't think I did. No.
I think it's like Ready Made Family or something like that. Someone's going to correct
Okay.
us. I know they will. But basically, Marky Mark and his wife are real estate investors. They're fixing and flipping houses, and they decide to have kids. And somewhere down the road, they start talking about adoption. And they're playing this. Oh, what was it? I think it was a Beatles song, but someone's knocking at the door, somebody's ringing, and that sad song is like playing over Marky Mark looking at all these kids' faces on a website for foster care, and that obviously tugs on his heart, and they ended up adopting 3 siblings. And obviously there's some struggles in that, and like the first half of the adventure in foster parents right there, like this isn't as bad as everyone talked about. So they're going to these support groups and they're talking about all the horror stories. But then Marky Mark's character and his wife are like, our kids are great. Like everything is, we lucked out. Everything's so cool. And the parents in the group are just laughing at them like, just wait, right? Just wait. Were there any challenges for you guys when it came to adopting 3 sibling kids that were coming right into the family? Were there any challenges or hiccups, road bumps that you weren't expecting, or they didn't teach you about, they didn't train you for?
So I seriously joke that if everyone that has kids biologically would have to go through the training, I think it was 18 weeks. It was not a lot of training hours that we had to go through to foster. There wouldn't be probably kids in the foster system. So yes, they do tell you and teach you a lot. Can that prepare you for the wounds and the hardships that kids come out of? Absolutely not. Um, it's hard when you get a 1-year-old and she's crying half the first night in the first week because you don't know anything about her
Mm,
and you don't know what they expect at bedtime. You just don't know anything. So even though we had the checklist, you might say, emotionally it's really challenging because you care deeply and you want to give them this amazing scenario, and you are, but they can't communicate with you. It makes it really challenging. And then it definitely goes in segments, you might say. There's great spells, or with 5 kids there's always maybe one that's journeying through something. They all
mm.
mourn the loss at different times. It's kind of like grieving the loss of a loved one, and some of them are younger, some of them are just going through it now, and so it's hard to prepare for that because you don't know when it's going to be and how they're going to process it. So
Sure. And I can't imagine that you'd be able to answer this from their perspective, but I guess from an awareness perspective, as children, can you give some insights to the listener as to maybe some of the communication you and your children have had with respect to the, I guess, awareness that they are adopted, that they are foster children that led into adoption? Is there any, I guess, animosity or I would imagine some gratefulness obviously is there, but from their perspective, having that awareness that they're adopted, what sort of challenges has that presented?
um, I would say the challenges are number one, we talk about it all the time. It's something we don't hold as a secret, and that's definitely something I encourage people to never hide the truth. That hurts worse. So deal with the hurts or the pain by being honest, and that's what we've chosen to do. Where that really can come out to be interesting and sometimes hurtful, if we allow it to be, is when all of us can tend to be like, the grass is green on the other side of the fence. If only I was over there. So gratefulness can be also sprinkled with, if only I was with my real parents, as they can refer to it as, then I would be able to do, or I wouldn't have this. And just understanding they're speaking out of pain. But I was my dad was adopted, so I tell people I'm the sandwich between 2 adoption stories. So I know what it feels like to be the son of a father that was adopted, and then now being the father of adopted, and it's just, there's a lot of dynamics there. Um, there's definitely a lot of gratefulness. I mean, a lot of times they'll come and just hug and be like, "Oh, we're so glad you're our, our forever parents," and things like
That's
that.
awesome.
So it's definitely very rewarding. But I'd be totally lying to you to say it's easy. There's so much worth it that the hard times are worth it. But
For
it's
sure.
still challenging.
What are some of the techniques and tips, I guess, you would give as a husband and wife team who are doing this? What are some of the things that you and your wife communicate, either with them or separately with you two talking together?
Um, like I said before, definitely making sure, I mean, continuing to talk about and affirm their feelings. So we're always, even my wife and I are connecting at how can we better um, communicate and affirm them in any of the challenges that they're facing, because it's real to them. Even if we can see through it or we can see to the other side, not to undermine that for them it's real, it's big, and it's hard. And so we're always just telling them, talk it out. If you talk out your feelings, try not to encourage pent up feelings, because they just explode into fireworks. So
What are some of the conversations that you and your wife have that kind of get you through, right? So I imagine, like with my wife, we have 6 kids ourselves, and Quinton has a small child. There are conversations that you have where sometimes you're just having a really low moment and they've got to pick you up, right? I don't think we're ever at the same level of just preparedness and mindset to take care of all these kids, right? So what are some of the things that you and your wife do to encourage each other to get through that?
I think reminding each other the truth. So if one of them's like, I wish you weren't my mommy, or you're my daddy, or whatever, or whatever else that we might endure, usually that can send you on a spiral, right? But if the other one, if I was not the one that received those words, I can then be there and be like, hey, babe, you know as well as I do that it was the moment and they were speaking out of the pain, and
Right.
they love you to death. And usually it's like, yeah, I know, and it just helps to, like every relationship, if both of you are in the dumps, it can be pretty dumpy.
Mm,
So definitely is helpful when one of us is at least on the way up when the other one's on the way down.
for
So
sure.
yeah.
So living in an RV, I imagine you said the great outdoors is your playground. What are some of the best places in the United States that you've traveled so far?
If I were to ask our kids, where they enjoyed the most of them would shout out Big Ben in Texas. We spent a week down in Big Ben.
Great.
We went across the river into Mexico. They loved it. They shout out their own money and rented the little donkeys and rode up into the village, and they talk about it all the time. Texas as a whole is a big favorite of theirs. Rodeos, all of that fun stuff down there.
For
We
sure.
spent a decent amount of time in the Everglades in Florida. They really enjoyed that. Colorado, Albuquerque, New Mexico. So there's a lot of cool places, but Big Bend National Park is definitely probably outside of the travel to Bali. That's a totally different story. But yeah.
Great. No, great segue actually. So you've been doing the full-time RV thing for about 5 years, right? So what was the catalyst that got you guys to go to Bali, right? To go to Indonesia and spend, what was it, 3 months or
We were
almost
there 3 months,
okay.
yeah, 92 days total.
Wow.
Um, Basically, it was a dream, and we kept saying, and we hadn't put a timetable to it, but we kept saying, in a couple years we're going to do this. Well, we met another family, another 2% family from the Danny Johnson community that we met in a campground. Well, at that point, I didn't know anything about the Danny Johnson, and that's how I got introduced. But we met them. They were standing at the corner of a field in December of 2018. It was like December 21st or 22nd, right before my birthday. And my wife said, you need to go say hi to those folks. It looks like they may have an adoption story as well. So I'm I still joke with Cody, the folks that we went to Bali with. As we got off to a trashy start, because I was carrying trash to the trash dumpsters after an event, and I just stopped by to say hi. And the joke was it was my cop out. Well, we spent about 25 hours together that first week playing
Wow.
games. Here they were just right across the road from us for a couple of days, and we just didn't know who they were. And we played games, and by the end of that first week, I knew that we were like birds of a feather flock together. And in the camp, and when you RV, you pretty much know in a meeting or two with someone whether or not it's like, okay, these folks are going to connect to the next level or way deep, right? Because all the surface stuff is out of the way. We know we live in an RV. We know we're weird. We know all these other things that RVers are. So you kind of go quicker. Well, by the end of the first week, they were like, dude, we just got back from Mexico to this world traveling event, and we're super excited next year to go to Bali to the next event. You should join us. And I look at my wife, because I'm definitely an aggressive kind of guy, and I'm like, let's do it. This is exactly what we were looking for: someone to invite us, a place to go to get a location, a little bit of stability around it. And we did. We committed, because by December 30th, the prices were going to go up for the event, but we knew we could cancel until May or something without losing money. So that was my second concern. And the rest is history. Literally within 7 days after meeting them, we committed to go to Bali. It ended up then deciding to be 3 months, not just for the event. So we were in Bali for 30 days, in Ubud mostly. And then we went to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia for a week. And then we were in Chiang Mai, Thailand for 3 weeks over the Lantern Festival, and then back to Bali for 4 weeks.
That's amazing.
So
I can't imagine how your children reacted. That what was the culture shock for not only your kids but for you and your wife? What was the culture shock value for you guys? What was some of the things that really stood out that were not American, that were not Western?
yeah, I mean, definitely driving on the opposite side of the road. That's a unique challenge. Cars are used, there's a lot of them, but it's very inefficient. So we were a family of 7 that got around on 2 scooters. My wife drove a scooter, I drove a scooter. I had 3 kids, she had 2 kids. We go as far as an hour and a half away to the beach. So that was a major difference. The kitchens over there are very basic, and going and getting groceries or getting your own supplies is almost more economical to eat out. So over there, I think it was,
That's
if I'm
interesting.
remembering right, 100,000 of their money, because I'm forgetting the name right off the top, was about 7 US. And you could get a large pizza. I mean, wood-fired large pizza for 33,000, so $2.50 US.
Wow.
Yeah, so you could get meals. I mean, we could feed the kids an adult meal for, if we're really watching it, for 18,000 or below, 20,000 for sure. So that's like a dollar, like almost like a happy, dollar meal. I mean, at Wendy's. So, yeah.
Were there a lot of expats over there that you ran into that were living that high life, given the value of the dollar?
Ubud is a little bit more of an expat area. It was a very safe area. But yeah, it was definitely, there was English around there. Now in Chiang Mai in Thailand, it was a different story. I mean, you could hardly go to the store. Um, English was a lot harder there.
Were you, I guess the safest way to ask this, were you around any conflicts or issues? Did your family, narrowly escape anything? Was there anything that, put you in a situation you didn't feel comfortable being over there?
I felt safer there than here.
Really?
Yeah,
Tell me
I would
about that.
let my, because there, the honor and respect and just for kids is through the roof. Also, they believe in a very, I'm going to use the word karma, they believe in a very strong principle of karma. So they just, I mean, safety is of the key, honor and respect. They know it's, to a certain extent, they know it's where their money comes from, but even to their own people and everything we saw, I saw nothing, even amongst their own people, for in the 2 months we were there. I felt more comfortable leaving my kids at the house there and going out with us for a short date with my kids there than I would here, literally,
That's
by
amazing.
far.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You kind of get this stereotypical point of view of the Philippines and Indonesia as a very anti-Christian or even anti-Western society. Were you, I guess, did you feel more safe because you were going into more touristy locations, or you were navigating through kind of all of it and you still felt safe in all of that?
Felt safe in all of it.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, there was no encounters. Everyone was welcoming. I mean, some of our kids are a little darker complected, and our youngest son got the headdress and wore the sharon, all the stuff that they do. I mean, literally walked through the market, and I mean, he was like the talk of the town. I mean, talk of the town, you might
That's
say. I
awesome.
mean, they were like, young man, handsome young man. I mean, they were just like, they were so proud
Yeah,
that he took on and respected their culture.
sure.
And I mean, and we just
So
saw that all over.
there were no cries of cultural appropriation happening.
No.
You
Yeah.
kind of get that on the West Coast of, you start to culturally appropriate even though that you're honoring that particular culture. So that's good to hear. When you guys were over there, so how recently did you guys get back?
We got back Christmas Eve, so December 24th here.
So right around the time the COVID situation was really starting to emerge in that hemisphere, were you at all keeping up with it on that side of the world yet? Had it become news over there?
We didn't know anything about it, and we came home through China. So
Oh wow,
yes, I mean, I knew nothing about it. I didn't know there was. I mean, to us, there was nothing. So yeah.
that's incredible. When you got home and you started to see, so Christmas going into January, that's right around the time we start getting the breaking news out of China that this thing is spreading, that this coronavirus nobody knows about. It's the first time this has come up. There's so many questions about it. The WHO is saying it's not a big deal. Then 2 weeks later, it's a pandemic, right? So talk to me about how it's starting. When you first got back and you started hearing it, what was that initial reaction having been over there? Was there any fear, or was there any uncertainty having come from there, if you needed to go to get tested, anything like that?
No, because by the time I even realized it, because I'm not a big news guy, um, we were well beyond the time frame that would have been of any concern. I mean, yeah. I mean, and for the first week, you're in jet lag so bad that you didn't know whether or not you were coming or going.
Hmm.
And so by the time we got to New Year's and kind of got rolling again, I mean, yeah, we didn't know. I didn't even know anything was going on well in advance past 14 days. And by now I know I'm good. I mean, from there, I mean, I'm not saying I couldn't get something from this side of the world, but
Oh, for sure. And so with your business, did it start to impact you at all, or has it impacted you at all so far? In, we're what, almost 90 days into this, starting from January into now going into early or late April going into May. How has your business been affected?
yeah, it's been affected immensely because we were put as an unessential, and so we've been shut down officially since March 19th or March 20th, and so we were running full speed until the governor announced that tomorrow you're done.
Wow.
um, so it was catastrophic. Literally, we were in Texas and at the time, so we were spending the winter there, and we got word, and I started to feel uncomfortable really fast. I had just flown home from a Hearth and Barbecue show in New Orleans, and I was going to fly back to Pennsylvania for a transition with a staff member, and on the flight back from New Orleans, which was the week before the 19th, so it was about the 11th, I'm going to say, of March. Things were going really fast all of a sudden, and they were talking about canceling things and all the basketball. I was sitting at a restaurant, and they said that, dude, today they just said about basketball. I mean, there was a talk of the buzz, and I'm jumping on a plane in just like literally a couple hours, and that's when fear started hitting me actually for the real
Mm.
first time because I was actually out in it. Because I was like, oh crap, here I'm sitting on a plane, am I going to put myself at risk? And
Exactly.
so I was unnerved for those next 14 days, to be honest with you. But in that time, I got home. I was going to fly the next Wednesday. So that was like a Friday night. And by Monday night, I told my wife, I was like, I'm feeling super uncomfortable. And if things start shutting down in borders and this goes really nuts, I need to be closer to my team. In that time yet, I was not thinking that they would shut a business down. I wasn't there. Naiveness, I don't know, but I just wasn't there. I wasn't really concerned about it super much.
Right.
But it changed in 24 hours. So we started heading home. We left on Tuesday morning. We're like, okay, we're going to do a soft trickle home. We'll try to be home by Sunday. That way we were there for Monday of the next week. No big deal. Well, the pressure kept going higher and higher. We were home by Friday afternoon. By Wednesday night, I texted my one employee and said, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there. I know I sound crazy, but by next week, we're going to have to stay at home. We're going to stay at home order. Within 20 minutes, I get a text message from someone else saying the governor of Pennsylvania is shutting down all non-essential business Friday. I'm like, yo, what? So no, this was Thursday night. Sorry, it was Thursday night because it was the next day. So I go into full gear because I knew I couldn't be home in time. So I get on the phone with the guys first thing in the morning and said, okay, guys, let's prepare to come back. Let's prepare that we're going to be closed down end of day today, but that we're going to be able to come back to work on Monday so that we leave ourselves in the best position possible because we can't react fast enough and put everything where we need to. And I mean, it was a blur. I mean, I'm trying to drive back the rest of that last day. And by the time I got home at 4:30 that evening, the business was closed and we have not physically reopened since. So
Wow.
Monday morning of that next week, we laid off the entire staff.
Oh my goodness. That's definitely going to be hard. And to talk about the fact that we can't keep up with the headlines, like when Quinton and I first started talking before we started this show, we were recognizing these patterns, and back in January, February, come into March when things really started to hit the fan, we were already talking to each other about, man, we need to be prepared for June and July, maybe even into August. And you start getting into these pattern recognition and following the news. But to your point, right, you can't keep up with the headlines because you think, yeah, they're going to close South by Southwest, right? They're going to announce that. I'm in Texas, so I follow that conference, and there was a lot of buzz about canceling South by Southwest. And as soon as South by Southwest closed, I put a tweet out there and I said, next up is the Houston Rodeo. And everyone, when KHOU, which is the local channel around here, they were saying, Houston Rodeo is still going on. Everybody's going on their merry way. They've got, 50,000 in attendance at any given time in the back of my head. And I would leave comments on those live feeds of the Houston Rodeo. And I would say, you guys need to be prepared that they're going to close down the rodeo. And every reply back was, no way, they're not going to do it. It's too big. It's never been canceled. They're not going to do it. A week later, right? Couldn't keep up with the headlines. A week later, the Houston Rodeo shuts down. And it was just as fast as that. Like, there was a tweet that some news reporters put out there that they're expecting to close it. And then within an hour, they had a press conference, and it wasn't like, we're going to slowly shut down. We're going to have a couple more shows. We're going to limit the attendance. It was, you guys need to be out of here by 4:00.
Yeah.
And that's just amazing that things escalated so quickly. Yet we see in the media right now that we didn't act fast enough. We haven't done enough. We need to be more draconian. We need to be a little bit more authoritarian in some of the things that we've been doing. And now that some states are starting to open up, one of the patterns that I've been recognizing is, okay, states are opening up and Texas opens up tomorrow, for the most part, opens up tomorrow. And right away, the headlines are 10,000 dead in one day, or 10,000 new cases with 310 dead in one day. I'm like, well, I didn't see that coming. So we're going to open up the states, and then the next round of headlines is going to be cases jump, cases on the rise. We should have never opened up. See, we told you, you should have never gone out. Tell me a little bit about the impact that it had on the business with respect to having to lay off pretty much your entire staff, correct? How
Yeah.
did that affect them? And were there any backup plans to keep them on for a certain time? Are you taking advantage of any of the PPP loans that are out there to keep your employees on?
So basically, when you're not legally allowed to work, keeping them on does you what? And that's the challenge that I'm in right now. Because if I burn through cash right now, um, we can't restart because it's going to take extra cash to restart. So what we've been doing is my wife and I decided we're not taking a paycheck and we're busting our chops. So we're here building furniture every single day. We're still shipping about 80 to 100 pieces of furniture a week minimum. And we've pivoted to .com business excessively, very aggressively, because all of our brick and mortar customers are closed down for the most part. And we know that there are other businesses that have chosen to bring staff back in pretty aggressively. Now, mostly it's just my wife and I, but if we say no, and this is what's happening all around us, whether it's a roofer, whether or not it's a kitchen company, I'm here in a shop in the same facility with a kitchen guy. And here in Pennsylvania, we're not very far from Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. So if Jersey, Maryland, and Delaware don't close down construction or they don't shut down kitchen manufacturing, where are they going to go? Across the state line, because they need their kitchen. It's an essential. Well, the same thing happens, and this is what's killing small business right now. So that's why we aggressively swung. I mean, I am shipping more product this week in 1 week than we would ship probably in 2 months for .coms just this week.
Wow.
So we pivoted immediately coming out of the gate. We have some aggressive relationships that we are focusing on, and I've hit a lot of marketing support. Mostly for us, we have certain products that we ship in 48 hours called a quick ship program, and we didn't have pictures of every color combination done. So I've been like working overtime to have representation of every color palette available in it so that it makes it easier for the .com experience. Should have it done before? Yeah. But like I've been coaching other businesses, if we don't take this opportunity of downtime and work on our businesses in every area that we've been saying that we just don't have time to get to, we are really making a bad choice, because we've been given a famine or a time to put fertilizer into, to let the land rest, right? Whether or not it was our time, it wasn't mine for sure, planned. If I don't take advantage of it, it's my loss.
For
And
sure.
so even though there's been extreme discouraging parts of it, I am busier now than I've ever been. And it's because I'm working on pivoting, working on strategy. And because we're not a huge company, um, I'm saying this so that I can come back and listen to this, I guess, but I am looking that we will literally double our business in the next 18 months,
That's amazing.
because I believe the pivoting that we're doing and the regain of then the other clientele back, I believe wholeheartedly across our companies that, yeah, we'll see the excessive growth. And we're doing that in the Facio side as well as Daybreak side. So Daybreak is a line of outdoor furniture made out of recycled milk jugs. The problem was our manufacturer of the product was in Illinois, and they were closed down. A company that runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, they were closed down for over 4 weeks. I'm afraid we haven't seen the end of it, because if we get a burst coming out of this and they were closed down for that long, the supply chain issue around America is going to hurt us worse than the epidemic
Oh, for
and the
sure.
period of time that I haven't been able to work. Because if I can't get stuff to build product, I had over $140,000 worth of raw goods sitting here, standstill. So I have to burn through that, but a lot of it was for sold. The problem of it is, if the company I'm buying from, I don't know what their reserves are like, because they are big, but neither do I know what my competitors are doing. So I can't just go spend cash right now that I don't have, speculating that they're going to run out. Neither can I speculate that I'm going to run out.
Mm. It's a crazy, just we talked about this in past shows, fight, flight, or freeze. And we're all just kind of like, where do we go? What do we do? And if you're not taking advantage, if you're not pivoting, if you're not at least thinking about what the next steps are, you're definitely going to be hurting your business. To back up a little bit, so your father started a woodworking business when you were 16 years old. Is that what got you into the furniture business? How did Daybreak Poly Furniture come about?
So my dad's been in furniture since he's 16. I was born and raised in sawdust.
Right.
and was building custom furniture by the time I was 16 years old. So basically what happened was my dad, when I was young, needed marketing work done. And I was one of the boys that liked the computers the most. So he bought me Photoshop and I started designing his literature.
And did you enjoy woodworking at the time? Was that
It
something that you enjoyed
then
doing?
grew into doing it for other people. So I had a crossroads where I literally, yes, I would have, if someone would have asked me when I was younger if I was ever going to be out of woodworking, I would have said never in a million years. Like, this is just in my DNA. I was born and raised in sawdust. I'll never go away from it. And then around 20 or 21, I made the cut, even though I'd started the marketing company, because by age 21, I had 10 or 15, 10 or 12 employees. So it had grown quite fast and I had to make a choice. I couldn't ride both fences. And so I got out of furniture or quit working for my dad and went into marketing full time. And at that point, then I said, I'm never going to be back in furniture again. I always say, though, you say never, you will end up doing it. So I guess that was my way back in. So yeah, but I didn't get back into furniture in the indoor. So we got into the outdoor space because it really tied in with our the RV side, and we love the outdoors. So
Right.
I'm more passionate about it because it's fulfilling for the guest what we have passion for, which is definitely family memories outside, around the fire, doing those outside activities. So
So you mentioned that the product itself is made from recycled milk jugs, right? Tell me a
mhm.
little bit more about that process. How does that work? And is that a marketing bullet point? The fact that it's greener, is that something that you tout?
I mean, it is one of the areas. It was definitely more aggressively that way earlier on in the product life. Now it's available in, we're at 28 colors. They have now replicated the product to look like wood. So we have some products out there that literally looks like wood, but it's made out of milk jugs. Um, so it's plastic more than anything. So it's plastic, looks like wood, and it's heavy like wood. So it has weight for windy areas, things like that. And it's very durable because the color's the whole way through it. So if I'm cutting an arm out, it's colored pink the whole way through. There is no painting, no staining, no anything to it. You can't paint it actually. Paint won't adhere to it.
When it comes to that particular business, so when all of this talk of non-essential and essential, you know, there are a lot of RVers that were protesting not being able to leave certain campgrounds, or not being able to go to new campgrounds. Did you experience any of that living in an RV, or do you already have a dedicated plot where you're pretty much stationed anyways? Or have you encountered any other RV families that were essentially either stuck or just had nowhere to go because all the RV places were not letting anybody in?
Yeah, that was probably one of the second biggest reasons why we came flying back to Pennsylvania, because both my parents and my in-laws are here, and so I was like, well, if worse comes to worse, we can park in a driveway or do something crazy. But we immediately started calling around before the real lockdown happened, and we're able to secure a monthly site at a location, a campground that has not seasonal, but people that rent sites there by the month more as a living arrangement. Um, but any of the recreational ones that we normally stay at, we were going to already be gone from that campground and be over at our normal ones. And they're just finally opening this weekend for the seasonals, and opening next weekend for the public. So we're still locked into renting by the month here at that location. But we were very grateful and blessed to be able to do that, because it was the security of it. Yeah, there was friends of ours there that we were working with that, I mean, they couldn't get another reservation, but they didn't know if they were going to get kicked out of where they were. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah, my in-laws were facing the same thing. They were supposed to go down to, I believe, Georgia and Florida coming in the next few months, and they were just they were at a standstill. They couldn't stay any longer at where they were. They were able to get an extension. Long story short, they got the extension to stay there, but they just didn't know where they were going to go. And I imagine that's a big hurdle that a lot of RV families right now are trying to to figure out, right? So if they're full-time traveling, for instance, Scott and Lindsay, his wife, they pretty much said, we're not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. So they're fortunate enough to have property here, and they can have a home base, and a couple other RVers are joining them. But there's a whole nother, I mean, there's retirees and millennials who are living their life, right? They're living the best life in an RV, the van life, and they're stuck. They're either stuck in a state that doesn't really welcome them to begin with, or they're stuck in a place that they just don't have family and friends, and it's that isolation, that's that mental health that everyone's been talking about, right? That people have been cooped up for too long. There was a survey quite recently that 100% of the respondents of this survey said that if things don't open up more in June, by mid-June, that they're going to literally go crazy. And this wasn't like a Babylon Bee article. This was a legit article that was talking about a survey where 100% of the respondents said mid-June. What are some of the things that you're seeing in your state, or just in the news that you're following, that you're starting to recognize some of those patterns? Are people around you starting to get stir crazy? Are employees calling you up saying, when can we get back to work? When are we going to get this show on the road?
Yeah, I have not been in a retail establishment since the first Saturday we got back. So that was March 20th or so. And I'm about going stark crazy. I mean, I'm just going between the RV and here. And that's all I've been. I've been to the grocery store. I've been to a hardware store. I mean, I stopped for fuel once, just outside. That was it. And there's a part of it with my personality that now it's a game, because if I don't turn it into a game of like, how long can I stay out of a retail store through this entire process, and possibly even when I'm allowed to go back, I would go nuts.
Right.
And I feel like I'm a pretty strong person, so it doesn't surprise me. I mean, and I'm not stuck at home just every day. I mean, the
Or by
folks that,
yourself.
huh?
Or by yourself.
Or by myself. I mean, but then there's others that I'm communicating with, even employees, that I'm just like, dude, like, I'm trying to just figure out how to help them along to stay engaged, because my fear is that we keep talking about wanting to do, but it's kind of like a long, lazy vacation, and it can literally start to mess with your mind, I believe, on almost not, it's hard to restart. Even though in our heads we want to restart,
Yep.
and that's, I think, what's starting to happen to our brains, because I'm even feeling that way in going to a store. Like, I'm like, just order it online, because I'm like I haven't been to a store in over 4 weeks. Like, why should I start going now? I do want to go out and do what I want to do, but on the other hand, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like your brain starts to go freaky places, and I'm even scared.
Right.
I mean, not scared, but I'm like, my brain is like, wow, this is crazy. It's the programming and just the way you reformat, I should say. It's pretty
That's a great
wild.
way of putting it, the programming that's happening. And you can see that in the news. Just when you read enough news, and you don't read just one .com news, you start to see the both sides are talking out of both sides of the mouth, right? So you get, this is the worst thing that's ever happened, we're all going to die if we don't stay inside. And then you get the, we need to open up and get the show on the road, where we're going to just completely annihilate the economy. Quentin, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm usually kind of like the economic doomsayer on the program. I find interesting things that are going to be problematic for us in the future and talk about them. But I'm not going to do that. I actually have a bunch of really interesting topics to talk to you about. So number one, my dad's paternal grandmother, actually her family came from Lancaster, PA, and they were like Anabaptist Germans. From a group that ended up becoming either like Mennonite or Amish. I can't remember, but they came to Texas back in the day. And so that's cool. I think that's pretty awesome. That's a very good background to have. And I'm sure it's taught you a lot of skills and ethics and ways of behaving and interacting with customers and coworkers and the business world that I would find very interesting. And I really want to hear your opinion on your Mennonite background and how that shaped your worldview and how you interact in the business world.
Yeah, so definitely going back to work ethic, it can be to a fault. I've been up since 4 a.m. this morning, and was threatening to work until 1 or 2 o'clock in the tomorrow morning, tonight. And so it has a good and a bad, right? So drive, motivation, and good work ethic is amazing. my desire is balance, right? And all of that. But when you see it around you, you just continue to do it, right? Even though we're not necessarily part of that community to the same degree anymore, it's just still in your DNA. You just continue to do, continue doing it. So, yeah.
And the Mennonites have a very specific ethical background and kind of a moral template. And what do you take from that and incorporate in your own business dealings? How does that help shape your business ethics, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah. It is impacted it both ways. So definitely honesty is something that we're trained in, you might say, from a very young age. And I'm not saying it's just part of that
Yeah,
culture, but it's a very big deal.
it is. Yeah.
And that's huge. But then there's also can be another side of it that, not saying that everyone does, but I caught a good amount of aggressiveness behind that as well. So because it was sometimes challenging to get places, manipulating the system sometimes can become part of that, even if it's just within the church boundaries. It can sometimes carry out into your business life, and so that's been a challenge for me in more years gone by, to not use that power of saying I'm a Mennonite, or I only went to 8th grade, or manipulating the system by using cop-out excuses per se, and in the time sometimes not even realizing that it wasn't ethical, in my opinion. Now I'm just like, no, don't use that as your cop-out in it. So, but definitely, I mean, that was why I skipped college, because we weren't allowed to go to college. And so I jumped into business very young and just continued pushing right up through that. So talking more about how it formed me, that was a huge forming thing, because I talked to a lot of people, and we didn't get to talk about everything that I've done, but I mean, I've done house flipping and real estate and all these different things. I've acquired both of the businesses that we're running today, from either Amish or other Mennonite folks, and just all of that. And they're like, how do you do without college? And it's like, well, I don't know, just went through 10th grade in school and learned some math and went out and hit it hard. Um, and that work ethic is what did it, because I ran through a lot of hard things, but continued just coming back and saying, no, push through it.
Very cool. Yeah, I can honestly say that I learned nothing in college, and I was mostly just self-taught my whole life. I just it was if I had advice to give to my kids, it would be to do exactly what you did and not to do what I did. I did things the hard way, and I was an entrepreneur, and I just didn't pursue what it was that I was good at or what was important to me entrepreneurially. And when I was young, I didn't have somebody pushing me in that direction, and it was a real regret. And so, me and my wife actually really considered the RV lifestyle years ago. We thought that was really cool, and that was something we really wanted to do, because we do everything. We're surrounded by very materialistic people, and we get judged a lot because we're not materialistic, and we don't really care about the things that we own. They don't define us. Like, our occupation doesn't define who we are. The things I own don't define me. And like, everything we do, we put away a lot of money, and everything we do is for our kids and their future, so they don't have to struggle the same way we have. And so we really contemplated that as a good way to educate our kids, travel around the country, and to, give them life experiences that we didn't have, but yet live within our means and provide money for a very, impactful, or, just a future that we didn't really get to have, and we got really criticized for that when we were telling people that, but I think it's a great lifestyle, and I'm still pretty interested in it. I've always have been. And so, what would you say to a family wanting to consider a lifestyle like that, the kind of nomad entrepreneur lifestyle, and what resources would be available to those people to help pursue that dream?
So what I would say, first of all, what are you waiting for? That would be the first thing. Number two, you made a comment that you really don't care what people think about your material things. Maybe you just need to choose to think the same thing about your desire to live in an RV or to live in that way. Because really, it's mind over matter. And if you care about the opinions, you won't do it. Because there's going to be someone that's going to try to weigh in heavily about, well, I can't see my grandkids, and if it's not them, it's going to be a brother, and if it's not them, it's going to be someone that you care about, right? So it's going to be someone. But that's about everything we do in life. And so from that standpoint, that was kind of where we've now been going. Like, we want to do an international trip every single year. This year is probably going to be our off year, or not do something as major. Um, but we finally came to that conclusion that there's never a better time. And we keep telling ourselves that in life. It's like, well, in 2 years from now, the kids are going to be out of diapers, and then it's going to be, and then when they hit that stage, it's like, oh crap, soon they're going to be here, and then we won't have to like have them in a little, chain thing, so we know that they're staying with us. And by the time you reach that spot, then it's this, right? So it's never going to stop. So basically, you have to know why you want it, put that action plan in place, and just do it. That's my encouragement. Are there resources? Absolutely. There is a big community called Full-Time Families, and Full-Time Families does an amazing job, just because it's a community of so many families, to be able to be a sounding board on any question under the sun that you might have. I mean, there is no subject matter that someone hasn't dealt with. There's even some people that have written books. There's a Lundy family that have traveled. All of their kids are now out of the house, but they've traveled for 10, 12 years possibly, I think it is. And they've written a book. There are resources, books out there now, because there's so many people. I mean, there's thousands of families. That's why this whole RV thing during this, whole episode has been so major, because, I mean, there are people everywhere, and not just tourists. I'm talking people that literally live in their RV like we do, 365 days a year.
What was it like
So
running the
also,
business?
So that
yeah,
has
that's what I was going
changed.
to ask.
Yeah, so that has
Sorry.
definitely changed throughout the years. We acquired a company in 17, another company in 18. So we've done a lot of different things while we're doing, and what we bought into was the manufacturing side. Before that, I was running more the marketing, and we were buying real estate. We have real estate in Memphis, Tennessee, and then we were doing house flipping as well. So those are, a little more virtual friendly. But I'm working on the factory floor now, but I have not worked on the factory floor since, wow, before we went to Bali. So that was September. So I really haven't worked on the shop floor in 9 months. And my goal was not to be at the factory more than 3 months cumulatively this entire year. And so basically, I believe and think multi-locational. So I don't like the word virtual, because virtual is in your pajamas, I just, the connotation. But multi-locational has a different connotation. So our order entry is done in the Philippines. We have support people all over the world. We don't have people really here at the office. And so, like, my wife does a lot of the bookkeeping. I do a lot of projects, from product design, development, rep support, things like that from abroad. So it was mindset though. So the Bali trip changed our minds, and I wish we would have went to Bali or somewhere like that sooner, because we were 12 hours different in time on top of being gone for 3 months. And that's two very unique things to go through. Because when I'm away from home in the States, I still would fly back and forth pretty regularly. This was the first time, and I have the plaque now, which I haven't made one yet, but I have a plaque I can hang on the wall, and that the team and we all can remind ourselves that this happened. This is a stone, a memorable stone that we can't take away from ourselves, no matter what hardships we go through in the future. That I wasn't here for 3 months, and you guys know how to do it, and that we can lead and communicate and do what we need to do, no matter how many locations we're at. It's about culture, it's about communication, and it's about format.
What were some of the communication tools that you were using? So in the tech community, we use things like Slack and Discuss and Discord, and some of these other chat rooms. Essentially, the email is not necessarily the best place to communicate, especially if you want real-time communication. What were some of the tools that you guys were using to communicate back and forth?
Right, because I was 12 hours apart, I didn't want anything but email, because I would get woken up
Makes
in the
sense.
middle of the night. So basically, we had it more set up on I would usually work, okay, I'm reversing my times here. So right now they're just getting, it's about 9:30 in the morning there ish. So at 6:00, 4:30 in the afternoon here when they were leaving, Raphael would say, you guys send me all your questions. So when I wake up in the morning, I'll dispatch out all your answers to everything. And that way we might be able to we kind of caught each other 2 times a day, kind of, but the way the clock rolled. So I would usually stay up late in the evening to be with them more in the morning. So I would stay up till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and that brought me to about lunchtime here. So then I was able to answer some of the repeat out of the questions I answered. So if I answered all the questions, quote, in their evening, they had the questions in the morning. If they had any follow-up questions, they could bounce them back to me. But what it did was this. I believe ease of communication is a real decay for responsibility and decision making, because we've created this world where if I don't know the answer and I don't care to look for the answer, and I'm not saying that it's always done this way or that everything is because we don't want to find it, it's just easy to ping it off to someone else. And so what I didn't want to see in this was, well, what about this? No, look it up. Myron's sleeping right now. And if you don't, if you can't figure it out, I want to know that when it comes to me, it's because it's life or death and you just can't figure it out. And that I know the seriousness of it is you need my help.
Yeah,
And it worked really well.
Napoleon was quoted as saying, do not wake me up unless it's bad news. He didn't care about the good news. He didn't care about any trivial battle that had been won. He didn't care about the decisions. He left it up to his generals. He left it up to his lieutenants, all of his subordinates to figure it out, to truly seek and look for the answers themselves, and not to use the open door policy, quote unquote, as a crutch to not looking things up for yourself, not having a responsibility to move forward, to move the ball forward. So I really like the fact that you used, what was it, multi-locational instead of virtual. I think that's a really great buzzword to put out there a little bit more.
Yeah, so we had an amazing trip. It taught my wife and I a lot. It taught the team a lot. And that's really where we came up with the more multi-locational, and our mindset switch has come a lot more aggressively alive, because before we felt attached to PA because that's where the businesses were. And when we got back and we got settled in and flowing, we're like, wait a minute. The business location does not determine my physical home base location. And that was a light bulb moment for us. For others, it may not be that complicated, but for us, because this is where our roots are, this is where our businesses are, we just felt like our domicile had to be here. And this is where home base was. But we're like, we're in an RV. We can make home anywhere. We can make our home base anywhere in the world if we desire to. And that mind switch is what got us into multi-locational mindset, because now it's like, we can have corporate offices in Texas or wherever, right? We can choose wherever. Like, corporate offices don't even need to be here. So it's about mindset that we could have any company. I mean, a lot of companies have locations all over the world or all over the US. And so that just opened our minds. It was our journey, at least, on just starting to just go to the next level. And if it wasn't for COVID-19, I mean, it would even look more different than it does now. But I wanted to stop for a minute on that because I just brought up COVID-19 again. And that is this. It was the largest gift coming out of this 3 months away. And then we were home for 3 weeks and I went to Texas and we were there until we came back in March. So since September, I was only here in PA for like 3 weeks. And a lot of amazing things happened. It was amazing. But we're going to become stronger because of this COVID-19, because I lifted the lid off the bucket, and now that things are kind of out of it, I'm like, wait a minute, why in the world is this in our bucket? And so we've been finding things because we're serious about it, because we paid off over $650,000 in debt in the last 24 months. We're very aggressive to be we're hoping to be debt free by this year.
That's amazing.
And still believe it's going to be possible. It's going to be challenging. But we're looking in the bucket going, why was this happening? What was this going on? Oh, wait a minute. So our business is going to look totally different again when we come out of COVID-19. Like, it is going through a transformation right now that is going to look totally different again. But what I wasn't happy about originally, but I'm super stoked now that I believe we just gained 2 years of expedited our goal in where we were heading, coming out of Bali, coming back, all of that. If I would have not been here but 3 months this year, we would have lost more money that I wouldn't have realized was going on as I'm becoming a distant but involved boss. As we're setting up for multi-locational mindset that I might not be here. Also hiring people coming out of this that Myron is not here. So right away in their minds that we're changing our domicile. We're in that process of saying we're not Pennsylvania residents anymore, and choosing the state in which we will call our home base, where we will go maybe park for 6 months. Because in our minds, we're saying PA is not our domicile state anymore. And so we're bringing people on with that in mind and making sure that they're aware of that. And that, yes, I'm very involved in day-to-day ops. I'm very involved in the culture, very involved in the vision, the product design and development and all of that. But I can do that over in this state, in that small factory as well. And as part of COVID-19, we're pivoting into other market spaces. So it'll go on for hours if I keep going. But yeah, I think it's the biggest gift that all of us have. I mean, if we're not taking it as that, we're missing out.
We've been calling it the hard reset for a lot of things, financially, mentality, the economy, how we do things on a day-to-day basis. Quinton?
This moment will define us as a nation, and it can define us in a way that's extremely positive and moves us forward with an abundance of independence, or it can just make us more dependent on this system and more dependent on others and cripple us. It's all what we choose to do with this time. So I wanted to, speaking of the virus and how it's affected business, one of the reasons we're in this mess financially as a nation is because of our interdependence and outsourcing and our economy being so tied to those who may not have our best interest at heart. You're an American company. You make furniture. How do you stay competitive in the world of IKEA and Chinese junk furniture, disposable furniture, at big box? What are the things that you do to keep that competitive edge and to make sure that your competition doesn't, end up just swamping you in a sea of useless disposable junk furniture?
Yeah, so in every segment of business, I call it the 3 levels, so good, better, best. And so definitely our product with a 20-year warranty, we're in the best category. It's just, I can't put it anywhere else, because a 20-year warranty in an outdoor product just puts it through the moon or put it through the roof. So what we try to do is try to find our market space where we can get the most attraction and the most growth out. Because if we try
where is that
to,
exactly?
So basically we're aiming for the design group. So we're putting more effort into the designs, the cosmetics, hiding screws, so that we can go into more, like in Houston, I went to the big patio store that are called Patio One, very elite. Like that's where we're trying to put our products. We're trying to hide all the screws from the outside. That's very normal in this industry, to make it look. My whole motto is bringing indoor out. So we're literally doing turned leg lathe tables, bendings, all of that stuff that was known more for the indoor space, and I'm doing it in outdoor furniture from my indoor experience and my connections, saying we can turn this world upside down, because people love what they have indoors. Let's bring it outside in a product that they don't have to paint, stain, and do all of that. So we have chosen not to try to enter at price point at this moment. And what I'm finding is, and what we try to do is, I always say, where you make money in life is how you sell and how you buy. And so, yes, our product is recycled here in America, and we look very aggressively at how we buy. So we buy tractor and trailer load volume when we can, winter buys, things like that, so that we can keep our pricing as competitive as possible. I'm also very focused on lean and efficiencies, and so we shipped 20 gliders the other day, and we can cut lumber in the morning, and if I were to stagger it, because if we had to, we could ship those 20 gliders by the next morning.
How are you in automation? How is that? Is that something you're implementing in your business? Is that something that you see moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm even thinking robotic, but I would prefer to keep humans on it. So, but I'm trying to think, like, we're always looking at fewest steps, how can they do it more efficiently, and et cetera. And so we're trying to do a lot more on CNC routers. So if I can put that lumber on the CNC 15, 20 minutes later, it comes off all the parts. All I got to do is put the soft edging on it and take it to assembly. I have a win on my hands, because I can continue putting those pieces of equipment in, not dehumanizing my relationship, but if I know fixed expense with an amazing product, drilled the same way, cut the same way every single time, 15 minutes, I can have that chair off ready to go into processing. We can become more competitive if I can buy my volumes of lumber at better and continue reducing my price by 5, 6, 7%. And we're selling, like this week, our .com business is one of the majors. Like I'm talking like the hay needle styles of the world, though it's not them. It's the hay needle styles of the world. Why? Because people are still buying American made, and I think the switch is going to come. And so we're ramping up mentally, physically, emotionally, because if people can't get their outdoor furniture across the pond right now, they need something, want something yet this summer or in the near future. We're American made, and we're proud of it.
Yeah,
And
I don't
so,
buy foreign furniture for all the reasons you said, you know.
yeah.
And I
So
like the
we're
fact that
trying to
you're trying to
continue to
be
keep, we do want to lower our price, but I always say, I don't want to hurt our value, because the value of what we're producing. So if we do that, I come from a brand background. We have another brand that we'll put that furniture under so that it does not mar our main brand. Because I'm not saying we don't want to go to maybe
sure.
the next level down or be able to support that, because I always say if I can only support the 20% of America and my wheelhouse, because we're manufacturing, that's what Facio does. We do private label manufacturing. We build more units for other companies than our own, meaning we build thousands and thousands of units for other outdoor lawn furniture competitors, per se, people that have their own recipes. Someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to build a chair like this and sell it. They market their own goods. We build it for them under their name. So
Even
we
Rolex
already,
has the
yeah,
Tudor, you know.
right.
They have a house brand. It's a great brand. So a lot of companies do that.
But we're exercising our growth muscles on other people's dollars, meaning we're not having to market everything that we sell. So we might sell eight or 9,000 units a year. And in furniture, that's a lot, because it's not just a little widget that we're building for brands that aren't our own.
That's
And
awesome.
that helps us in our brands, because we can afford to buy better equipment, more efficient equipment for our lines of furniture, because we're using it for the broader network, which is why we have Facio, and we also have our own lines of products.
So we're seeing that transition already with some of the memes that are out there with Buy American, Stop Supporting China. What are some of the things that you're implementing to take advantage of that mentality, that shift, that light switch that you were just talking about, where people are going to want to start buying American made in the USA tags? What are some of the marketing initiatives and campaigns that you are either about to implement or have already implemented to get that ramp up?
Yeah, so unfortunately, America's programmed for quick. And so we have developed an entire brochure of our products with limited options that's quick ship. And that ships in 48 hours if you order by 2 p.m. We are now rolling out a limited edition of same day ship if ordered by 2. I'm messing with my own head, but I believe it's the Amazon of high quality furniture. And so I look at that and say, if that can gain me another segment of business, I don't want to be foolish, but I believe that that's a part of the programming that's around me. And so if I don't support the programming that the 98% buy on, I'm the stupid one. So we're trying to look strategically and saying, okay, we're an instant gratification country and they want American made. The Amazon is programmed for 2 days. We're going to do high quality, handcrafted, American made furniture shipped in 48 hours.
That's amazing.
And we've been now beta testing that before this happened. And this week alone, we've shipped 30 pieces of furniture, 20, 25, 30 pieces of furniture on that program.
So
And
with your,
mind you, that's $16,000 to $20,000 of the wholesale furniture that we would have had zero if we would not have swung the pendulum and say, you know what, .com is our friend. I've got competitors, and I'm not saying they're making a wrong choice, but they're saying, you know, the web is a hassle, all this stuff. And I'm saying it's my lifeline. It's now
right.
going to become its own entire business model. So this year, heading in before COVID, like last year, we were beta testing 3 modules: the online, the brick and mortar, and hospitality. I didn't realize, to the degree I do today, that if I would not have even started down the thought process, and because if we didn't have the boxes here, we didn't have the foam machines, all the stuff to be able to package to ship at this level, we couldn't have done it. We could not have pivoted fast enough. So we were already pivoting, but then we swung hard.
Right.
And so that's my encouragement to business owners, entrepreneurs out there. If you're feeling something, start developing in that area. Don't wait for the crisis to happen to pivot,
Mhm.
because then it's too late, because the box companies have been delayed. I'm supposed to get a shipment tomorrow that I should have had last week. So if I would have been delaying too much, I couldn't be shipping product. And it's only going to get worse coming out of this.
That's great. With having to lay off most of your staff, how are you managing the inventory in that respect?
Um, Carefully. So basically right now, my wife and I are focusing most of our attention on the quick ship products, and the custom orders we're telling people that we're not open, which is true. And so that's our way of being able to kind of survive through this, is we're focusing on that, because that's the low hanging fruit right now. And and most of our .coms pay us within 3 to 5 business days. And that's also a very big help during a time like this, when you're trying to, you know, at least make enough, even though we're not taking paycheck, enough to keep the rent and all the things, hopefully, from going backwards. So our main goal right now is to come out of COVID-19 with all of our bills paid, or at least current, because I don't know what this summer is going to be like. When your largest company you private label build for tells you to reduce your inventory like as if it's fall already, and we haven't even hit spring, that's a lot of red flags, my friends. That's a lot of red flags.
Yeah, and we were talking about in our last episode that people are just they're thinking in that 2 week window, and truly they should start thinking in a 2 to 3 year window, because this is already being called the next depression. This is already being uh, touted as something that we're going to be looking at the stock market trading sideways for quite some time, if not within the next 2 weeks. Again, going back to that pattern of we're going to reopen, and then boom, we're going to get flooded with a lot more cases. So then the stock market hits that second crash, which puts us into not a recession, but a depression. So people
Right.
really need to start thinking about the 2 to 3 year window when it's talking about that.
Yeah, so we've made some really hard decisions already, and that is that we're going to be soft restart, even if there's a lot of business there, because I do believe in a second swing. That's my opinion. This is going to come back to hit. The tail's going to come back and hit us. That's my opinion. And my concern is that we rehire too fast. They're doing this, and then they're not going to help us out with unemployment on the second round with the rates. I have no proof. I'm just concerned.
No,
And
that's
also
That
good.
is the
supply
next
chain.
show topic. That is actually what I wanted to discuss. The next show is how basically with this second reopening, what's going to end up screwed up is unemployment insurance.
Yes.
Huge,
And
huge,
that's
and
why
it's going
you
to be
talked
pushed on
about,
the small business owner,
yeah,
and
you
it's going
talked
to
about
crush them.
you talked about the PPP. I have we got approved for PPP. It just got funded yesterday. I'm scared to death to use it,
Yep.
because I just came through an audit on sales tax. It was hell. It was, this is my interpretation, all these different things. And so I looked at my wife and I said, if we're paying money out that we would not be paying in that payroll anyway, or we weren't planning to with our own plan, I don't think we should do it. Because if we do it and it gets forgiven, it should be a gift, and we should be like, oh, that was nice. But I see businesses doing this, and they're not bringing their people back to work because they can't, and they're telling them to stay home and have a vacation. And I'm looking at that and going, That just sounds like a really bad financial idea if you don't get it forgiven. You're going to come out with this huge debt load. And I always say this, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Because
Absolutely.
this is my fear. Like, if unemployment is souped up right now and the offerings to the business owner for the expenses that they're covering are very minimal, why don't I just leave my people in unemployment and shut down my business and ride out the storm and then go back full speed as much as I can when it's over? Like, I just don't understand, or call it something other than a loan. But when your banker puts the capital words in it, like I asked him, I was like, can you give me any tips to make sure that most of it is forgivable? He's like, my job is to help you get the thing. And he puts something in capital. I wish I could remember exactly what words it was, like, so that you can do your best or something to get your money back or to be forgiven. It was done in a way that professionally, I don't think he could say, but I wanted him to take his professional hat off and just tell me, because I think he would have said, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the wild, wild west right now.
It's something I wanted to talk about on the next show, but I'll just go ahead and kind of quickly talk about it.
You can tease it.
But yeah, we'll tease it. I don't want to be critical of anybody really, but the way our government has handled the response to small business, if it really is the pillar of the U.S. economy, which I truly believe it is, has been interesting. We'll call it that. And I'll go more into that on next show. But if you look at the way it's being handled in other countries and the way we're handling it here, I don't want to say that they do want small business to get crushed, but if we do this soft reopen, we know that demand for products isn't going to increase very much. There's still going to be a huge portion of the population that is just going to stay at home, and they're going to continue to drive down demand of products. And it's going to cause problems for small businesses, because if they do try to reopen, their overhead and operational, their fixed costs could be so high that it actually just crushes them, and they end up having to lay off employees. Well, now the government's off the hook. Instead of paying, paycheck protection plan and actually providing stimulus, now it becomes an insurance crisis. It's not a government crisis anymore. That's huge. And that's a serious problem for the small business owner. It's a huge problem for our economy. And if it's done wrong, if the government mishandles this at this moment and we get hit with a second wave and demand goes to the toilet, which is very likely to do, then you're going to see the death of small business in this country forever. It will be absolutely crushed by big box. It will be absolutely crushed by Amazon. We will be serfs to these giant tech oligarchs and these giant retail oligarchs. It will be an absolute total devastation of the small business economy in a way we've never seen before. Right. And that's my biggest fear. And that's what I want to talk about next show. But you brought it up, and I'm glad you did. I really am. I'm really glad you did.
Yeah, if I have fear somewhere, it's that area, because I'm very disturbed when we shut down the small clothing store or the small store, no matter what sector it is, and yet the Walmarts and the Targets of the world are open, and they're not fenced off those areas. They should be fenced off those areas, but it's unfair because they're able to sell the product that everyone else is shut down and can't sell. So, for an example,
they're responsible for our reaction to this whole crisis. Right. It's crazy.
Home Depot can sell a cabinet to you, and yet all your small cabinet shops, that literally the small shops all over America, or PA for sure, can't sell. Like, it's just like, really? And then what starts to happen is, in PA at least, they're denying waivers, but giving waivers to some others in the same industry. So roofing companies are now losing business to the waivered companies, and the non-waivered can't do anything about it because the customer's like, well, so-and-so can do it because they have a waiver. Why don't you have it? Because some people in the same industry, there's no database of who got a waiver and who didn't. And to me, the reason there's not a database is because it's corrupt.
It is. And I knew the second Walmart and Home Depot and all of these big box stores got brought in, that it wasn't, if it would be one thing if the federal government had totally taken control of the response to this, giving stimulus, distributing food, maintaining security in the lockdown. But what they did and try to encourage the free market, I love this word because the free market has been completely bastardized, excuse my language at this point, but it's been totally bastardized. They bring in these huge big box conglomerates to try to coordinate the response. And I knew immediately it wasn't to promote free markets. You don't bring in oligarchs and conglomerates to do that. It's simply to consolidate. You will crush competition that way. If you allow monopolies to have this much market share in our fragile economy, the way it is right now, they will consolidate their power and they will own the economy. And they will absolutely crush the average American. It is toxic.
Yeah. I
I
mean, our
think
close down in small business right now already in what I call the first mild run of this epidemic. I'm talking the entire depression, recession, everything of it is astronomically frustrating and discouraging. We haven't even seen it start yet. That's the concern, because I mean, for rent signs, people hauling out inventory and boarding up their stores. Why? Because anyone that's on the brink right now, I don't want to be doomsayer because I like to be an encourager. They might as well box it up now before they go in the hole and can't get themselves
Absolutely.
back out as a family. Because
Absolutely.
the reality of it is that right now I'm blessed enough to be able to, just my wife and I, to be able to make stuff to a bigger network. But see, the problem is, and that's why we're doing our change in direction, is because we do have the ability as a manufacturer to be able to take our products to a lot of other places. But if you're a retailer in a town, you can only go so far. And yeah, you can create a website and all of that and whatever, but you don't have the same power. And that's why we're being aggressive with what we're doing right now and trying to get spread very quickly a lot of places, because that's our only hope of, like, the elephant feet to be able to stay up because of the footprint size. But as a small store, it's like, I'm sorry, if I was going to talk to you right now, I'd say I'm praying for you and hoping the best, but get out if you feel you're going down fast, because the hole is going to be super deep for your family for years and years and years. And I know it will be anyway. But I mean, you can't go without rent money on a $5,000 lease month after month after month.
Yeah, everyone is trying to get the bag, and they want the bag to sustain the business, but the bag is the lie. I mean, that is a lie, and all that is happening is a giant consolidation of big tech and big retail, and that is super frightening. I mean, that can literally make Americans. It could further our position as consumer serfs, and you will see people live the Walmart lifestyle, which is hell. And that's basically, minimum wage with Medicaid and, food stamps. That is your life. That is what will happen if you witness the death of the small business in this country. And for whatever reason, it seems like the government has primed that pump. Whether they did it intentionally or accidentally, I don't know.
Well, I mean, we've got this virus who is the most intelligent virus we've ever had, because it can differentiate between Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, and a nail salon.
Oh yeah.
And that's the most frustrating part. And I've said it flippantly, and now it's gotten to the point where it's a little bit more realistic for people who I know, people who I see in town who are shuttering up. And it's becoming that reality of, when the first happened, my first reaction was, well, you shouldn't have been a hairdresser. You should have picked a better career, right? Look at what the meme that was going around was, kids pay attention because look at what are the essential jobs. And it's now getting, for me personally, that heartbreaking reality of looking out into the world and saying, well, crap, they didn't make a bad choice. They just got handed a bag of crap right now. Like, this is just terrible. Yeah. And for us, and for like Walden Fencer, we had on our show a couple episodes ago, having the mentality to diversify that income, having the mentality to pick yourself up by the bootstraps, if you will, and not be just stuck in the foxhole, actually getting up and doing something about it. So you talked about, if you see a pivot, you need to either take a huge swing or sit down and pack up, right? This is fight or flight at this point. The freeze can no longer be a part of the conversation. This is fight or flight. And if we're looking at a 2-week cycle of the stalemate, the 2-week stalemate, as I think we've been calling it, is the fact that we've got people who are ready to open up, ready to go, We've got people who are saying, no, we're not going to do it. And then we've got another group that's saying, I'm going to watch everybody else and see what happens. So Quinton, you alluded to this, that we're about to have just 2 to 3 weeks of nothing, just nothing. People are going to open up, but no one's going to show up. No one's going to show up because everybody's watching to see who shows up. And then the people who do show up are going to be the ones that get, allegedly, will be the ones that get COVID. And then we're going to have this huge upswing. And
I don't know which is worse, because so if they do show up in mass, they might artificially spike demand, okay? That's actually a problem because their attendance is going to cause a second wave. Their appearance at your business is going to increase the contraction of COVID. There's no doubt in my mind. There is no real immunity to this disease. Many people have said it. You're going to get the disease. You know, there's anecdotal evidence that in certain areas, more people than they thought had the disease. Now in some areas, less people than they thought had the disease. So we're going to have a second wave. If the thing mutates, it becomes worse. This thing isn't selecting to become asymptomatic, unfortunately, because the incubation rate is extremely long. So it doesn't have to select to become less deadly. It already reproduces by the time it kills you. So it's achieved its goal. That's very problematic. If you artificially spike the demand, then there's a massive drop off when the second wave happens. You're going to have glut and you're going to have deflation like we're seeing right now in so many other commodity markets. If we have a second wave of deflation, if it's mishandled, like we're slaughtering so much livestock, we're destroying so much produce. If that wave happens again, you're going to see starvation. You're going to see economic collapse on biblical proportions, and you're going to have a massive sick population on top of this economic crisis. And that is not something the country can survive. And I really don't know if our government just doesn't. I mean, I'm not trying to be a doomsayer. Like, this is the map. You can just go plug in some numbers. You can just go, take a look at the economy and come up. It's just laws of supply and demand. There's also a mathematical equation behind how this virus spreads. I'm not sure what the end goal is for the government. We talked about in the past, they're locking people in Cheyenne Mountain, Mount Weather, Raven Rock. They're preparing for continuation of government protocol. That's pretty bad. If they don't handle this problem down the road and they artificially spike demand, we could be in for a calamity like we've never seen before. I'm afraid.
Yeah, we're definitely at a point of no return in this particular situation. The new normal, right, has already taken effect. We've already gotten to the point where it would take a miracle for this disease to just drop off tomorrow and we could truly get back to normal. But again, people are in that 2-week news cycle where they're just waiting for the next 2 weeks and they're going to write it out. So that's how initially these shutdowns were happening. We're going to close it until Easter. And then when that happened, my initial thought was, no, it's not. There's no way. It's going to be the end of the month. And then the end of the month rolls around. We're going to have to extend it for another month. And it's this just gradual adding on, testing people. It's certainly the frog in the boiling pot situation at this point. And as I mentioned,
that one just the other day.
and as I alluded to, right? So 100% of people polled in a survey were literally going to go nuts. They were going to go crazy. And we're already starting to see these protests get a little bit more agitation behind them, get a little bit more aggressive in the language and the rhetoric that they're using, whether you're for it or against opening up. That's not what I'm here to talk about. It's the fact that these things are going to start to boil over. They're going to start to escalate a little bit more. We had the governor of Michigan once again essentially retaliate against the protesters and say, because you're protesting, you're locked down for another 30 days, right? So go to your room, you were acting up. And it's just going to keep going and going. And it's going to get to the point where we're going to have civil unrest if we don't change course. And I don't even know that we can change course, right? To the point that I made earlier, this ship isn't sailing. This ship isn't turning back.
Yeah. And one of the scariest things about this is what if we do end up with civil unrest on top of everything else? And it just, I mean, civil unrest now, we could handle that. Civil unrest in September, October, that's a disaster. I mean, that's I don't even know what to say about that. What's crazy too is everyone hates this system at this point. They really, the average American, left or right, they hate globalism. They don't like outsourcing. They don't like insourcing. They don't like job insecurity. They don't like their wages where they're at. You know, they don't like us being basically consumer serfs to other nations. One of the best ways to do that is just stay at home and then shop local if you can. I mean, I have no idea. Americans, we've forgotten how to be civilly disobedient, and now it's just like we're going to go out and picket. Well, you could have just opened your doors at your local mom and pop shop there, and told Walmart to go hang. You know, that could have had a profound effect if Americans all across the country did that. That's civil disobedience in a way that actually could break the system and change it in a way that you would want to see. No one's proposed that. It's just, we have to accept the bag, or we have to stay at home, or we have to go work back at our faceless bureaucratic job for globalist, big tech and big box. There's no in between. There's no other way out.
That's why I believe they slowly staggered this whole thing in. Like, you used the whole frog in the pot, and I just was telling a group of guys that the other day. I'm like, if they would have made all the rules that they made just out of the cuff, there would have been a revolt.
Oh yeah.
But they got everyone in the pot, or they tried to get everyone in the pot, and they just kept turning the heat up. I mean, so here in PA, they made a mandatory wear a mask like 4 weeks after this thing was in shutdown. Like that should have been like, even if you didn't know it worked, right? Hypothetically, we don't know if it works.
Should have been
Why
day
wouldn't
one.
that have been precautionary for the essential workers immediately coming out of the gate? But we didn't do it. We waited till 4 weeks. Now there's signs on the doors that you're not allowed in the gas station or in places of business unless you wear a mask. And now they're policing it and sending you back out the door.
Yeah.
And what's happening is that we're programming people to basically just, hey, they said it, we got to do it. And this is what's continuing to go, because they kept going. Now in Pennsylvania, the best I know as of right this minute, May 8th is when we're going to start doing openings. I haven't even heard a plan yet, though, exactly how that's going to roll out and where and how much. Like, job sites, construction is just opening, I think, this week here. But one guy said it's not even worth it. From the last I heard, they didn't even like say, okay, so many people per square foot house. It's like 4 people per job site. He's like, if you're doing a huge place, that makes no sense. Now, it may have changed some, but these are the strokes that are going out, and everyone's just like, oh, well, that's the rule, so then we're going to do it. And that's because everyone that's in the pot's boiled now. Literally, they are desensitized to a certain degree. And then there's a lot of us other ones that have been trying to figure out which side of the, maybe the kettle we're on. Like, we're maybe hanging around on the top going, what's inside the kettle, what's outside the kettle. And we're just now at the point going, what in the crap is going on? And that feels like where I'm at. I'm just like, what in the world is going on? Like, some days I wake up and I laugh. I almost just laugh uncontrollably. Like, what am I living in?
Yeah, what movie is this?
Yeah, because it seems so outrageous.
I want to ask you a question, and you can totally turn me down on this question, Myron. You don't feel obligated to answer in the affirmative in any way. But I'm going to be talking about this, and Sal and I are going to be talking about this Sunday, a Sunday show. That's exactly what I wanted to talk about. This Sunday was the effects long-term, the strange reality that we're basically caught up in, and the effects on the American small business from here on out that these policies are going to have. Would you be available Monday evening, or I'm sorry, Sunday evening?
Probably.
Would you like to do that? Because I think you would be fantastic.
I mean, on this subject matter, anything business, I'm a fool for punishment. I just love small business. I want to see small business succeed.
Me too.
And literally right now, if I was going to advise small stores, is figure out how to get essential products into your store. Literally, because that seems like that's all it takes. Sell eggs and milk in your whatever store. I mean, that's one of our pivoting moves is healthcare equipment. And we're not really in that genre, but with CNCs, like, that's literally how bad it is, because this is going to happen again, folks. They've done it once. They've set a precedence. This will happen again on any whim for any reason, because they have now told us that we don't need facts. We can shut you down. and
Yep.
we can shut you down fast, and we can shut you down for as long as we want. End
Very
of
much so.
story.
And I can hear it in your voice and I can see it. And I know our audience is listening to this on a podcast. So I think that they would agree with me when I say that they can hear in your voice that you're passionate about small
Very.
businesses and helping small businesses. And you've got a great thing going with Freedom Group LLC. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how people can get involved in what you're doing with your coaching?
Yeah, so Cody and I are doing, we just finished up this week as our third free mastermind where we're just allowing folks to come. We've talked about focus, preparation, and succeeding. It was kind of a 3-step of like, preparing a little bit, just going through the thing. And our goal is to continue creating that place where more than ever, small business owners, even managers within companies, we need somewhere to go, talk, and process. So
Yeah.
our goal is creating a mastermind. I've been part of masterminds, and so I trying to package what I believe I've always dreamt of having and never really had. Not saying they don't exist, but I've never been a part of one, but I'm pulling it from different places. We want to teach, we want to hold accountable, and we want to serve. And that's where we answer questions, more of a hot seat style thing. So that's what we've been doing. And we've been beta testing it. Again, one of those things, we talked about doing this, we prepared and planned in Bali. And we come back, we were going to roll out it all in a certain way and all of that. And then COVID-19 hit, and we're like, you know what? We're professionally vulnerable. Like we try to be professional, but it is what it is. It's rough. It's going to be natural. We're not just going to tell you what you want to hear. Our goal is to help you, because right now more than ever, if we want to survive as small business owners, and that's our target, small to mid-size, is we need to rally together. We need to support each other and have that network of accountability, resources, and relationships. So
That's definitely important and impactful words to get out of this. Myron, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, for taking time out of your day, your evening, time away from your family. I want to acknowledge that you have brought just an insightful point of view as a business owner, as a business leader, and as someone who has a great passion for not only taking care of their family and building a legacy, but also helping your community, be it nationally or internationally. And I'm very proud to know you. I'm very happy to know you. And I look forward to many more conversations like this. I'd like to turn it over to you, Myron, and give you 30 seconds to say whatever, let's say 3 to 5 takeaways that you want our audience to get from today's interview. What are some of the next steps that business owners should be looking at taking? And what are some of the mindset shifts that you believe that the audience should be incorporating into their life right now?
wow, there's so much. But I just presented the other day on mindset, focus, and accountability. And we are in control of our own minds. And so our destiny is determined by the choices we make right now on where we focus. And if we focus on what I can't do versus what I can do, if we do not refocus and say, okay, this is where I want to go, this is what I want to get out of this experience, we're going to lose. And put things in place to be accountable. I mean, I'm not saying accountability buddy, but if you know where you want to go, that in itself is a list to help you stay accountable. And I would say this: now's not a time to sit down, lay on the couch, and just, we're in a tough time. We're in a time unprecedented. I don't know who to call to say what was the last event like this light, because there isn't. We're creating history. And don't stop doing. Keep going, keep pushing, and fight for America.
Those are excellent takeaways. When you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I brought this up on the show before, the number one thing is just do something. Don't stand there. Don't sit there. Don't lay down. Just do something. Myron,
That's right.
thank you again so much for having us, taking this time to be with us. I'm really looking forward to our
It's
next
awesome,
episode.
man.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a lot of
I'm
fun.
glad. I can't wait for Sunday.
It's
I
going
think
to be
it's
a
gonna
great
be awesome.
show. You know,
Yeah.
honestly, I think we could make this a marathon evening if we really wanted to. So let's plan for our next episode to, you know, really dive in and get comfortable. So if you guys are interested in following the show, please consider downloading the podcast at newnormalpod.com. You can get it on Spotify, you can get it on iTunes, you can get it on Google. We want to thank you, the listener, for being with us as we continue to grow this audience, as we continue to grow this experience. We want to thank you guys for being on this journey, for providing feedback, for giving us encouraging words, for giving us support. To our family and friends, we thank you for the time that you allow us to be away from you so that we can get on the phone and have these conversations. So with that, I want to say stay safe and welcome to the new normal. All right. Good show. Love it.
That was awesome.
Stop
Thanks
the
for
recording.